This empty chair represents the addict who died today, not knowing recovery was possible.
Hi, my name is Phil Leahy, along with my daughter Colleen. We're here to present another edition of The Empty Chair, Exposing Addiction. Before Colleen introduces our very special guest, I want you to understand that our show is all about trying to raise awareness on addiction and recovery and so forth. And we've had a lot of people come in who have had a lot of clean time. Well, we're fortunate enough to have really three courageous girls who are coming here who are really still battling the recovery process. They're working hard at it, and they've been nice enough to come in and share their stories and what's going on with their lives right now. So, Colleen, why don't you introduce them?
Sure. Again, my name's Colleen, and I'm Phil's daughter, and I'm an addict. I'm in recovery, and I got three of my friends here. This is Shannon, and Tina, and Vicky, and I don't know, like, how do you guys feel? You know, like active addiction, I can identify with that. Like we know each other, like, you know, from meetings and this and that, and like just being, you know, knowing about active addiction, like we've all been through it. So I feel like we've all walked in each other's shoes, like we can already identify with each other with that. And like when you think of like, you know, like your bottom, like what brought you into like recovery, like what's the first thing that kind of like comes to your mind? Because I remember what my bottom was, like the last one since I got clean. So like, I don't know if you want to start, Shannon, like what would you think of?
Me, I first started coming into recovery in 2009. I was in a hospital in a dual psych ward facility, dual treatment, and my sponsor did a commitment there, and I just remember saying to her, you know, like, what is it called if you're not addicted to one thing, but you'll take anything that everybody gives you? And she said, come to a meeting, you're an addict. So that started me on my journey towards recovery. I've had some relapses. That's a big part of my story. Just coming back, I got 9 days clean today. And it hasn't been easy.
No.
It hasn't been easy. But
you said you had clean time before. What did you have? Because I remember seeing you celebrate a while ago.
I had a year and a half, and then I decided it was okay to go out and have a drink with dinner, and then that turned into drinking alone. That turned into using harder drugs, and that lasted for about 2 years. And then I came back, and I had almost 9 months and relapsed, and then every period of time has just gotten shorter and shorter in between relapses and recovery, and like, I'm just hoping it sticks this time. I'm trying to work it to the best of my ability.
Pretty much willing to do whatever you have to do.
Yeah, I keep in touch with my sponsor on a daily basis. I'm actually meeting with her tonight. You know, I go to meetings regularly, and no matter what, even though I've relapsed, even in periods of my relapse, I've still maintained a strong contact with the fellowship of recovery.
And you said right now you have 9 days.
I have 9 days.
I have 3 months.
3 months.
Yes.
Why don't you fill us in a little bit? And tell you, I mean, when you say you have 3 months.
I have 3 months clean. I relapsed 3 months ago.
Okay.
I started actually my recovery probably by 2001. Unfortunately, it was in prison. I was in prison for 6 months. And I got out. I went back again for 3 months. And in the past year, I'd say I'd relapsed probably 3 times. I'm struggling with relapse myself. My whole family's addicted. My children are addicted. I have 3 daughters that are addicted also. And we're all close. And that's where it's really hard because we're all so close. And it's hard to... You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Do you think it's
well, because I know my daughter lives upstairs from me, and she's still using, and I know she's still using, so I have to keep myself apart from that, but it's really hard, you know.
It's hard to detach from that to like be able to focus
Right,
on
'cause
yourself.
I'm trying to be
sure
a
you
role
want to go in
model.
and
Right,
save her.
exactly,
you know?
and I'm trying to be a role model at the same time.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So you've got to work it from both ends, the
Absolutely.
recovery aspect and
Absolutely, mother.
the tough love
Grandmother.
part and the whole thing right there.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
because he had to
difficult.
do the same thing with me. You know, he wanted to, same thing you were saying, like he's, you know, you see your kid. I mean, I don't have kids, so I can't identify with that. But like
Right.
from what he was saying, like basically seeing your kid doing all this like stuff out there, and you are powerless. There's nothing you can do.
Exactly.
You know, so you have to get like your own recovery because you know,
Right.
if you don't have that, like what else?
It's
what else
very
is there?
difficult because I have an oldest daughter that's 31 years old who's very active, and I try to separate myself from her, and she doesn't understand why, but I have to do my own recovery because without that, I can't help anybody. You know.
How important is it to have the fellowship, the meetings, and everything?
Absolutely. NA has definitely helped me a great deal. Without this program, I would probably be dead.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
With that.
So we got 9 days, 3
3
months.
I just celebrated a year.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah.
All right.
It's awesome. Gorgeous.
Thanks. Yeah, a couple weeks back.
Fill us in.
My story, you know, I started out like a lot of people. I think, you know, it started with alcohol, and in the end, it ended with a lot different, harder, uglier substance.
Mm-hmm.
And I did everything imaginable along the way. And, you know, through step work and meeting, you know, going to fellowship meetings, I realized that a lot of it was to kind of cover up whatever pain I had inside from a bad childhood or whatever. And, you know, at some point the fun stopped and I couldn't stop, you know, the using couldn't stop.
Now, do you have a relapse history also?
I do. You know, I had some time, I think my first exposure to like any type of recovery or fellowship was back in 2004. I had been using quite a bit. I had lost a couple friends, and then I had lost my grandfather, and I had tried committing suicide. And so, you know, I'd been committed. The state said, you know, you got to go for a 3-day evaluation. And so I ended up in a facility where they had announced that there was a meeting, and I wasn't quite sure what it was. But, you know, I walked down there, and I saw some older guys just kind of sitting there, and I thought it was kind of weird. And you know, it was an anonymous program, and they started talking about some of their experiences and why had they, you know, drank or drugged, and some of the stuff that they had been through, and it kind of, you know, I identified right away. You know, there was, I thought walking into the room that, you know, what are these guys going to be talking about that has anything to do with me? You know, they weren't my age, they were the opposite sex, they were, you know, just different looking people, you know, and right away, I heard something in what they were saying. You know, there were feelings that they talked about, experiences that they had, different things that I said, well, wait a second, you know, maybe I'm not so different, maybe I'm not so weird. And, you know, I can't say that I went to a meeting like right away every day, you know, from that point, but I started going to meetings and popping in and out, and I'd get some time, I'd get 3 months, I'd get 9 months, I'd come up on a year, or I'd go back out, and I wasn't ready to surrender to the program. So
Heard that expression a few times.
yeah.
Listen, we're gonna probably ask you guys some questions that are, the answers are kind of simple to you, but I belong to a support group for the families, and a lot of questions that I get, well, I'm going to give you an example. To those people who don't have someone who's involved with drugs, you know, the parent who's, everything's rosy, everything's fine, okay? Your brother being one back then. They have an expression that goes back to one of the first ladies, just don't do it. How do you respond
Just say
to
no.
someone who says, just don't do it?
For instance, we were just talking about that today. I used with my father years back. My mother also. I got high with my mom and my dad, and he just put it down because he just doesn't have that addictive tendency. And he just says to me all the time, why can't you just put it down like I did? And I just can't explain it to him. He just does not understand why I can't just put it down. He thinks it's so simple because he did it.
Yep.
And we argue about it all the time. You know?
I really think that it's a different chemical makeup. I think, you know, they've done like scientific studies and stuff and showed different scans of the brain and how, you know, someone who is a supposed addict, how their brain reacts to a substance versus someone who isn't an addict. And, you know, I really think there are just differences. I don't think it's a life that anybody would choose.
Absolutely.
You know, I think
Yeah.
there's people that can use drugs recreationally and they might get out of control and they might have to face consequences, maybe a DUI or a divorce or whatever.
That's
and
how
they
we
might,
started.
And they might be able to put it down and say, okay,
Recreationally,
wow, oh, I had some consequences. I guess I'm done now. I didn't care about consequences. There was no thought. It didn't even occur to me, you know. It's funny because we were talking about this the other day in a meeting, and it was brought up through one of our pieces of literature talking about consequences. And one of the things for me is that I said I was always aware of the consequences. I didn't want to have to pay the consequences, but really it was because I didn't want to have to stop getting high. Like if I got arrested, I wouldn't be able to use.
Exactly.
That was my thinking. That was my consequence. It didn't matter what it was going to do to my family, that I was going to lose my job, that I was going to lose my apartment, that I wasn't going to be able to drive my car. It didn't. None of that stuff mattered, you know. And I don't think there's any way to really impress upon people that aren't addicts what that feeling is like.
Well, I think we're definitely wired differently
Yeah.
than, you know, than normal people who can just like go out for a beer.
Yeah.
Like I can't wrap my head around that. Like how do you go out for one beer and then sometimes they don't even finish it. Like my brain can't like process that.
Yeah.
It
What's
seems
wrong
like,
with
it
you?
seems
I'm like that.
wasteful.
With, I'm like that with everything.
Right.
Food,
Yeah.
clothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Well, now
Yeah.
let me ask you another question that I get quite often from families, okay, who really are like you guys. They're in the beginning stages of accepting that their child or loved one is an addict, all right? And they'll come to a meeting and they'll say, the things you do to them, how can you do that to me? How can you lie to me? How can you steal? I know the answer. I want you guys. How can you do things that you do to people who raised you, who love you, who worship you? How can you do that?
Wouldn't do that.
I remember hearing you say that to me, just the
Yeah.
way you said that. I remember him saying that to me.
Wouldn't do that though
probably
if you
like,
were
whoa.
using.
Yeah. It's,
I would never do that if
yeah,
I had been
well,
using.
Yeah, under the influence, we don't. I didn't care how my father to me is you know, he's always been there for me through everything in my life, and I never really once, while I was using, while I was under the influence, thought about what I was doing to him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If I didn't have a substance in my body, I'd start to feel that guilt and that shame of what I had been doing or what I had done or how he had to rescue me again or whatever the case. But while I was under the influence, it's, you know, that switch goes off. And, you know, you can't make someone who isn't an addict understand. You
No.
know,
I feel that now, though. Now I
Yeah,
wish.
that guilt and
you
that
know, it was
shame starts
different.
to come back.
Right. I have so much guilt now.
Yep.
And I'm so sorry for what I've done. You know, but I can't, like she said, I can't take it back.
No.
Try to go forward. Do the best that I can do.
Well, I'm so early in my recovery process. I was just talking with Colleen about how, like, I don't even know to the extent of the things that I put my mother through, you know? Like, we've never had that conversation yet. It hasn't come up yet. But it's just not a simple answer, you know? And as far as, like, why can't you just put it down and leave it alone? Because even if we just put it down and leave it alone, there's a spiritual void that we will fill with something, anything, you know, any obsession or compulsion or, you know, a need to do something, you know, and it's not growth and it's not recovery.
And obviously you all agree that addiction is definitely a disease.
Yes.
And how old, because we always do this with all the ones that come in, how old were you when you first started experimenting?
12.
Okay,
14.
I was 11 or 12 also.
okay. And this is, actually, Colleen's going to be doing some work with middle school kids, you know, 12.
That's awesome.
But all the ones we've had come in, and this is, you know, people hear this, 11, 12, you know,
It's crazy.
that's the norm. That's the norm.
It's sad.
11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
it's
funny is we were just
really
talking
sad.
about this today. We were talking about, we were reading through some literature and it says the word disease. And I used to fight that. And my mom is an active addict. And what's funny is I used to equate that to like being a week or like less than. Like, I guess I reflected upon like having known that my mother was an addict from a very early age, and having wished that, like, you know, remembering every birthday wish I ever had as a kid, blowing out those candles and saying, God, please don't let my mother die from drugs, right? Then getting to a point where I had a choice, and yet I still made that choice. That always stuck with me for some reason. Like, you know, why did I make that choice? I had a choice. I had a choice. And then what I had to see is that once I made that choice, that's where the disease of addiction
So we made that choice because
we
we're
made
sick.
that choice, and then all of a sudden, you know, I was telling her that first time I drank with my friends, we weren't even done drinking yet, and I was like, "Let's do this again tomorrow. We got to do this again. I'm planning it." You know, and they were like, what's wrong with you? Like, we're not even done right now. Like, what are you talking about? You know, and I'm like, no, but we gotta, you know.
That's usually the point where you find new friends who want to use like you want to use. You know.
But that's, you know, the disease. You know, that's when my disease kicked in.
Let me ask
So
you.
you're saying like drinking with, you know, like friends and stuff like that, and you know how it is like coming into recovery and like and making new friends and making new connections with people, like people, places, and things. Like how important is that, do you guys think, being around here now? Because I believe that you are who you hang with. Like
Absolutely.
that
It's like you are
negativity
what
and that
you eat.
disease is so contagious, and
100%,
mine will feed right off of somebody else who's active. So how important is that to change people, places, and things, like being in recovery, the old friends?
It's very
playgrounds?
important. It's for your life, to save your life.
Yeah.
You
Throw your
have to
phone
save
away.
your life. Right.
I say that to, you know, anytime I see younger girls, you know, maybe that are coming out of a sober house or environment or what have you, recovery house, throw your phone away. Throw your phone out the window. Seriously. You know, whatever friends you thought you had, if they said, oh, no, but I understand, but they're still out there smoking weed or drinking booze or doing whatever, they don't understand.
Yeah.
They don't understand.
Another question, all right? I know I went through this with Colleen, you know, when she got clean for a good amount of time, 15 months, all right? And then she relapsed. Now, as a parent, when she was clean all that time, I'm saying, it's all over. It's done. She's cured.
That's like somebody saying you quit, so now you're not an addict or an alcoholic anymore.
Yes,
They don't get the
exactly.
concept that once an addict, always an addict.
Okay? Now, she talked to me. Now, you guys have all had significant amount of clean time. What makes you flip? What made you relapse, you think?
What made me relapse? Complacency and thinking that everything was all right and that I had my stuff under control and that maintenance was over and I was cured, you know. I was all better and ready to go out and be a normal person and do normal people things and, you know, just have a drink with dinner and, you
Did
know,
the meetings
like...
go first? Did that kind of start to...
The meetings, I moved. I relocated. So I was totally out of my element. I had lost connections with my women and my, you know, my support network. And I moved even farther away after that, where there was no meetings that I could even walk to, you know. So meetings went first. And then I said, you know, I'm all better. I can do this. And it just didn't end up that way. And this last time I came back in was my fiance sat me down and said, you know, you're kind of a jerk. You know, maybe you should start going back to meetings. And I just cried because I was like, I'm not a jerk. I didn't even realize I was doing anything jerky. You know, I'm just living my life and doing my thing, and I'm not affecting you.
Right.
I was affecting him, and I was affecting everybody that touched my life, you know.
And do you feel like after having any kind of like clean time, because I know for me that any time that I got clean for a little bit and I came back, I picked up right where I left off, and it always got so bad so fast. It was always worse.
You always think you can go out again the same way where you left off. And that's where it gets really dangerous.
Yeah.
It
A lot of
really
people
is because
try to
you
do-
try.
Yeah, they relapse and they might go back out and do the same amount or the same drug, and that really can kill you. But
That's the bad
like,
thing.
It's scary, it really
What's
is.
scary for me is, like, you know, what you said. Every time that I would go out, you know, people say, oh, it's progressive disease. You pick up right where you left off. And it was like, yeah, you know, whatever. And, of course, you don't think of that when you want to get high. And, it was. You know, you start that first amount, you're doing that same amount, and then it just takes right off. And it's like it's because you were absent from that lifestyle for that little bit, you feel like almost like you need to catch up.
Okay,
What did I miss
so
out
basically,
on?
all of
get
you,
so
when you
high.
relapse, you're all basically saying
I
you
was
got
almost
complete?
6 months clean, and I relapsed the day before my 6 months. It's almost like we sabotage when we're succeeding. We tend to just self-destruct.
Reservations.
I don't right.
I had reservations.
You know.
I didn't even know
didn't-
what reservations
Yeah, I didn't
meant.
want to. I guess I didn't know what reservations meant, but for the length of time that I kept going in and out, there were certain things in my life that I didn't want to accept, that I didn't want to have to look at, whether they were too painful or like whatever, and I didn't want to have to look back at them. I didn't want to have to sit there and like analyze it and say, why did I make this decision? Why did I react this way? And it was just easier.
Well,
Sometimes it was circumstances. Things would go on, and just an inability to deal with it.
Now,
Yeah.
It was
when
easier to escape.
when Colleen had a lot of clean time, and then she relapsed, and then she
Got clean again.
now she kind of put into my head that there's a huge difference between being clean
Oh, yeah.
and being in recovery. I take it you all agree.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's definite.
Absolutely.
Like,
It's,
I think my year and a half that I had before was, as much as I was working the steps, I just spoke with my sponsor the other night, and I said, the step work that I was answering the questions, I was answering what I thought you wanted to hear, not what my real answers truly were. So, I mean, that's addict behavior right there, I mean, manipulating and trying to get ahead and move your way through the program just to
I
say,
didn't know
look,
about that stuff.
Old habits. Old habits die hard.
look, I did this. Now I'm all better. You're always looking for that end result of I'm all better,
Yeah.
and push me through the steps. And right now, my sponsor doesn't even want me working on step work. She wants me to work on staying clean one
Right.
day at a time,
Yep.
and then step work will come,
Now, has it hit all of you guys that you're addicts forever?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
has,
I
right?
accept that today.
Yep.
I accept that today. I get really angry. There's one commercial on TV. I get really
I know that
angry.
commercial you're talking
Every
about
time I
too.
see it, you watch that
I'm not an
network, too?
addict anymore.
Yeah, I hear that commercial and like my blood boils.
It's so false. It
I
really
accept
is.
the
It's very
fact-
false.
Right. I accept the fact that I'm an addict, and like today I have a choice. I can be a recovering addict.
That's right.
Someone said like you get back what you put in, and like for me, all those times that I would go in and out, and I didn't want to do the work. I didn't want to have a sponsor. Like oh I'm different. I don't need that crap. That's for the older people or whatever. Whatever thoughts I was having, like you get back what you put in. And so this time when I felt for me. Like I was at the end, like I was either gonna die or I was gonna get clean.
Yeah.
I had to make a choice, and so for me, this is the longest length of time I've had because I've done the work. I go to the meetings, I have people in my network, I talk to them, I threw my phone out the window. I don't hang out on the corners, talking to the people I used to talk to. And you have to change all that stuff.
I know we're getting close on time.
Already?
Yeah, I know.
Told you.
Tell me something. We got 5 minutes. I want to know real quickly, how's your relationship with your family now as opposed? Has
It's
it
a lot
gotten
better than it ever was, that it used to be. There's still work to be done, but it's a lot better.
Well, it must be a lot different view because you have so much addiction on
In
your
the family,
side.
it's
yeah.
hard. It's very hard. I just gotta keep going to meetings,
Lead by example.
keep going to meetings. And,
Well, I have
right?
a lot of addiction in my family as well. My father is an active addict, and like my relationship with him is at an arm's length because I know, if I let him get too close, then I put myself at risk. And I love him to pieces, but that's why I got to keep him farther away from me.
So you're the addict who has to detach from the addict.
That's like me with my daughters.
And,
It's hard to do when you love somebody so much.
I think it's the same
you
for
know.
all of us because my mom is
Right.
active. She has issues, and like I have to just keep the focus on me.
How do I ignore my
I can't get her
children?
clean. On the other side of the spectrum, because it's not. I think that has like a negative connotation, having to detach in a positive
hard.
way. The positive side of being clean. We can't expect our families to forgive us for everything we've done, or to appreciate where we're at, because sometimes we get clean and we think like, oh, why don't they get it? Why don't they understand that we're better?
I heard
It takes
the
time,
saying.
but things do. Relationships get better.
I heard the saying, just because the tornado stopped doesn't mean there's not wreckage still everywhere.
absolutely.
You still got to work on cleaning that up and before you can put your relationships back together.
Guys,
Patience and time.
we're running low on time. I always forget to do this. Before we leave, I want to make sure I thank all the staff, all the people that help us, all the volunteers. This is our 7th show, and it's the first time I've gotten a chance to thank them because we usually run out of time, so I want to thank them. I want to thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've given, hopefully, people of what it's like really in the early stages of recovery, not clean, recovery. It's a courageous thing you're doing. Unless you're an addict or unless you're actively involved with an addict, I don't think people realize how tough a fight it is. You would think they would with all the times you relapse and then go back.
It's a lifetime
It shows
battle.
you how tough it is.
Yeah.
So I particularly want to thank you because you've added a different aspect to our show that we haven't had. We've had, like I said, we've had a lot of people with a lot of recovery and so forth, but you guys, in the day-to-day beginning battles of addiction, and it's no joke. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate. I'd like to have you back again like a year from now with some nice stories, but we're not going to, I know we do one day at a time.
That's right, that's right.
But I would love to have the three of you back roughly a year from now and continue and show people just how possible the recovery can be. Carl?
Yeah, I don't know. I love you guys. Like I heard him say it before that, like, you know, a using addict is like the worst person you want to come into contact with, but an addict's recovery is like one of the best people in the world. Like, we show up, we help people because it ends up in the end like helping us. And hopefully somebody will see this and be like, oh my God, like that happened to me, or oh my God, you know, and just identify and make them want to come to these meetings.
I feel
too,
so at home when I'm with other recovering addicts.
Yeah,
I'm
it's the
home.
best.
Yeah.
It's the best feeling in the world. So thank you guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we appreciate you coming. I hope we see you again sometime down the road. For myself and for Colleen, I hope you keep tuning in. I hope you're getting an awareness of what we're trying to bring. And at that, want to say goodbye, Carl?
Bye. Thank you. We love you.
Bye. And I hope you keep tuning in. Ladies, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys did great.
It was awesome.
No.